So let me just introduce Nelson, who's this? Nelson Phillips, the Associate Dean of the Business School, who's going to be...
We've worked together for 10 years, James.
Too many things going on. Nelson,
it's okay.
You're mic'd up, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm mic'd up. Thank you very much. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to invite the speakers on my panel, Luis Alvarez and Kelsey down. Are you good with your mic?
I am mic'd.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. All right.
Oh, now go right ahead.
So, introductions. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? My name is Nelson Phillips. I'm Associate Dean of the Business School and also a Professor of Strategy and Innovation. Great pleasure to be here. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'm sure you've been welcomed already, but welcome you again. I'm here today with two guests that have agreed to come and have a chat with me. Luis Alvarez, who's the CEO of BT Global Services, and Kelsey Lynn Skinner from Imperial Innovations. And we're going to spend some time continuing the topics and things that we just heard about in such an inspiring talk. We'll try to keep 80% optimistic as we go along. Maybe you just take a minute, introduce yourselves, and talk a little bit about your backgrounds, and then I have some questions to start us off.
Absolutely.
Well, I am Luis Alvarez. I run BT Global Services, which is all the corporate business of multinationals of BT. I hope that most of you have a relationship with BT, and my responsibility is just having that. I'm here not only because in BT we think that this matters, it's because also I have 4 kids. My daughter is studying here in the Imperial College, so I thought that it was also an opportunity. But I think that my personal view is that this is something that we have to make very personal, and when you have kids, clearly you think about the future as well.
Great. My name is Kelsey Lynn Skinner. I'm a venture capital investor with Imperial Innovations just across the road. But you might guess from my accent that I'm actually originally from the US. I spent 12 years in Silicon Valley. I'm trained as an engineer, actually, and studied energy systems and got into climate and clean tech investing in Palo Alto. And after spending several years there, moved here very interested in the way Europe was doing sustainability and looking at a pretty different perspective than the US. And joined Imperial Innovations because really inspired by the way they were doing very early stage technology commercialization and scaling into really big companies, both to be hopefully eventually on the size of BT, but also partnering with folks like BT. And so it's great to get to be here and talk about that.
Excellent. Building on what Norman was saying in his talk, I think the first question maybe for you, Luis, is really around the challenges. So we heard from Norman, many companies presented with a strong business case still don't do things around in this area. So what kind of challenges have you faced in your company, and what kind of challenges do you think that large companies like yours face in terms of reducing carbon?
Well, let me start with a reference to the discussion about being positive or pessimistic or optimistic, right? I think that when you sell, normally when you have pessimistic people, they are just complaining about the wind, right? When you have optimistic people, they are just waiting for the wind to change. When you have realistic people, you need to adjust the sales. So I personally think that we are in that moment in which we need to adjust the sales. And probably when you have a large company like BT, where we have probably a dual influence. On one hand, we are really a player in the carbon emission world because we do consume and we use that and produce that. But also we produce technologies that can help. Probably the main challenge we have at the board level or when we have internal discussions is that this is not an or. You don't grow or do the right things. It is an and, right? And I think that the main challenge is making sure that you have everybody across the organization feeling, understanding that there is an and that you have the same thing with your suppliers, with your partners, with people that you would like to work with, and of course with your employees.
So thinking about that, in terms of your external stakeholders in your supply chain, how have you convinced them to buy into this? Has that been a challenge? Has that been simple? What have you seen?
Well, the suppliers is easy because you say if you don't do this, we don't buy from you. So I think it's quite a straightforward conversation. No, I think that the biggest The biggest challenge for us is as I said, that when you are building new devices, new solutions, it's not only the big things that do matter. It is true that on data centers, so we have been, we make, just for you to know, it's around 1.4 million of carbon emissions, tons of carbon emissions every year, which is a large number. We have been reducing that consistently, and our target is by 2020 to have reduced 80% what we have in 96. So we do have an internal commitment that also we show externally by reducing 3 times our reductions into our customers and suppliers. But I think that we all can contribute. And to me, the critical thing is that when we talk about what businesses can do, I think this is personal. And it's more than businesses, it's business leaders. It's the people who are running and who have responsibilities in companies and organizations, what we can do. And it starts with a small thing. So you probably know that when you have broadband at home, you have those small hubs, right? Well, there is a funny thing is that we decided to stop to have CDs. That has reduced 147 million tons for 10 years. That looks like a small thing, right? We have reduced as well, which is quite interesting, the boxes in which the hubs go, so that now they can enter through a letterbox. That is reducing 347 tons a year, right? So it's not only about the very big things where we need to be committed to, and we can also make very small things within companies like that.
With big impacts. Kelsey,
and it means that you need to work with your suppliers to do that.
To do those things and come up with solutions. Very good. In terms of the small companies you work with, how are you finding it? I mean, there's lots of small companies trying to do this. Are there lots of investors who want to invest in those companies? What's going on?
That's a good question. And it depends. I feel really fortunate that we actually went right after Norman, because I thought that was a great case study and a very real case study that that I think the most successful companies in this space focus on both impact and profit and innovation. And if a company is at the middle of all 3 of those, actually I do think investors line up. But it's actually showing that you can have impact, you can have profit, and you can have innovation all together can be challenging. But we do fundamentally believe that actually, in order to really have the impact, you must have the profit. Because otherwise you can't scale the technology and you can't really have the impact.
So Norman's rule is a good one.
Yeah. And that applies to almost all of our companies as well.
Okay. In terms of BT and your efforts there, how have you, do you have an innovation center? How do you do it? How do you do these innovations?
Yeah, I think that, and I think Norman was part of that relationship a number of years ago. And we do have an ecosystem of relationships. And I think we do have labs here in the UK, in Ipswich. We do have relationships in Israel, in the US, in China. And it has become part of the conversation in 2 fronts. One is when we work with companies, this is now top of the agenda of the discussions we're having, how we can really make things sustainable, right? And those of you who are interested, we have just published a report in December that is how ICT is going to reduce carbon emissions in the UK. We have a sustainability report. We have a calculator, right, for the carbon footprint so that people and companies can use in our website. So it means that in that ecosystem, you can really create a spirit and in which you have that as part of the conversation when you design a new product, when you consider how you are going to roll out a new set of data center solutions, for example.
What's next for BT in this area then? What's coming on the horizon for your strategy? Where do you see going in terms of the environmental stuff?
Well, I think that Woody Allen used to say that I'm interested in the future because I'm going to spend the rest of my life there, right? So I think clearly we do hope to keep driving this. What we are trying to do is with whoever we talk to, with people that are really investing in the market, people who are designing products and solutions, on our own solutions. So we have now an environment in which we have cloud services. Sometimes we don't realize. Last year, just with video conference services, we avoided more than 700,000 meetings that has required traveling for people with our customers around the globe. So we can really influence in the future. But also, we are investing now in Milton Keynes. We have a smart cities project in which we are trying to learn how that can really work in a better way. And I love what has been said just before. We have a program of tech literacy in the UK, and we have something similar in Colombia. We have started to roll out something in Africa, in which we want to make sure that the technology is understood as a tool to make climate change reduce or stop. So I think that is an opportunity for us in the future.
Very good. A lot of the innovation in this space is happening in smaller companies, like Norman's companies. How do we get those companies connected to companies like yours, where the solutions can be put to work?
Well, I think there's, what do you need from us, I would say.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and I think one of the things that is often a challenge, and I actually really like both of your perspectives on it, also with your research background around organizational systems, because one of the biggest differences is actually around expectation of timelines. And and that's one of the things that I think really differentiates, back to your earlier question on kind of, how many investors are willing to invest at the early stage in this space. There's not that many, because it's a long time horizon, and you have to be patient. And some of the biggest investors in this space are differentiated by being very patient and understanding that it's a long journey. That is not always fundamentally compatible with corporates. And I think that is true both with startups collaborating with corporates, but also with corporates having their own internal innovation programs. So I'm just curious if you guys have seen best practices in terms of how to rectify that, bring it together.
Well, I think maybe, I think one of the things I like in that front is that, as I said, this is for me, I hate when we talk generically about business. I think that we need to address business leaders as the people who has to be accountable. We have to be accountable of what is happening. But also something that is fascinating for me is that you cannot attract talent if you cannot answer some of these questions, right? And in fact, well, my daughter, when I was telling her that I was coming here to say this, hey, oh, what are you going to say? Right, so she was testing. Right,
she can watch you on YouTube. So
yeah, okay. That is going to be scary for me now. But it's true. I think that if you really want to attract talent, if you want to work with the right companies, I think there is a huge responsibility and a big opportunity. I agree with Norman that it is possible, right?
I agree with you at the very top level, and I think that is probably true at the top level. I think that sometimes when the problem then occurs is how to get that buyout throughout the organization. So my guess, Norman was describing one of his challenges is that fundamentally the business proposition to his customers makes so much sense, but still 9 out of 10 customers aren't willing to do it. And I'm guessing there's a lot of, underlying reasons about, well, my OpEx chart can't cover that CapEx or vice versa. So how do you get that to flow down, that long-term mentality throughout the organization?
I think it's a good question. For example, on the sustainability, we do have specific targets across the company. We have a challenge cap internally, which is like a contest of people, of creating teams. They need to bring those ideas. But I think I would question back to everybody here. When you buy stuff, how many times do you think, oh, these guys are really taking sustainability seriously or not? Because it's the way also to judge our companies.
Well, and you were just mentioning about voting with your job as well, by looking when employees are deciding where to work, that's an opportunity for them to also have impact.
Yeah, and I can say with our students here, this is a central topic of interest for them and something they want. We have some of our most popular courses are around these questions, and there's a huge demand for this. So when you hire our students, they want to know what you're doing exactly.
And now we have the BT purpose is to use the power of communications to make a better world. And this is part of the recruitment process in which we explain what we do and so on, because it has become critical.
Very good.
I'm sensitive that I'm not sure we actually answered your question about startups and corporates.
Well,
would you still like a quick shot
please.
at that? So I think, and actually going back to that point around timelines, I think one of the ways that can evolve is that different, for a company, let's say that's from the very earliest stage, maybe several years of R&D and then commercialization and then market growth and scale, different partners are most appropriate at different stages, and being very clear about which corporate partners, what their goal is by partnering. So if you have somebody partnering with you at the very early stage who actually wants to capitalize from it in 20 years, that often can be a challenge because startups do change significantly and maybe headed in a slightly different direction, and then you can get a conflict in that direction. But a large corporate that actually has very similar R&D objectives can be a fantastic partner at that R&D stage. And so that's what we found across our portfolio, is that having different corporate partners that align very closely at those different stages can really help bring a company and help bring that kind of innovative culture back into the corporates as well.
And I think we can help as well some of those companies, because at least in BT we have taken very actively our role, participating in many forums, in many opportunities to speak and so on. We can connect the dots for many companies. We are members of the Global E-Sustainability Index. We have been in the COP21. So I think that by working together, probably we can also drive innovation through the whole process.
I think that makes sense. I think one of the biggest questions for corporates is when they want to innovate in a given area, what to do internally and then what to do externally, and how best to balance that.
Very good. All right, I'm aware that we're coming to the end of our session. Do either of you have any last words to share on this whole question of corporates, small companies, sustainability? Anything that you didn't have a chance to share with us?
We were joking before the session that when you follow really smart speakers, sometimes it can be hard to come up with new things to say. But I was really inspired by some of the things that were said earlier around the role technology will play. I think that is so fundamentally important, and it's one of the reasons that I feel very passionate about bringing very early stage technologies from universities. I mean, we're really lucky here in the UK that it is one of the global hotbeds for really great early stage technology research. And then how we actually bring that to market is up to us and a real opportunity.
I think that my reflection links to what I said before in terms of make sure that we make this personal. For us in BT, we are proud that we use that telecommunications both internally to drive the way we operate, the services we produce, how we consume energy, as well as working with our customers, with our suppliers, and so on. But I would like probably to end with a sentence that we all know, and is from Gandhi, that says, be the change you want to see.
Very good. Well, that's an excellent
Very
point
inspiring.
to end. Thank you very much. So thank you, Luis. Thank you, Kelsey. It's been really great to have you.